So without further ado, we're going to go to our program, and I'd like to turn it over to Carol to do introductions.
Yes, I'm so glad to have Mike Cipra, who's our Executive Director at Friends of the Dunes. I'm on the board and so pleased to have him. He's been with Friends of the Dunes since 2019. And previous to that, he's always worked in community and conservation, working at National Park Service. I even first met him when he was at HSU, and he was also the past executive director of the North Coast Regional Land Trust. And he just brings so much to Friends of the Dunes, and we have a really exciting new project, and he's going to talk about it. So I'll just turn it over to Mike. Oh no, oh, you have to unmute.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me to share something with you. Is it okay if I share my screen? Yeah. All right, does everybody have that up? Excellent. So Friends of the Dunes, you're probably familiar from Carol, but we're dedicated to conservation of the diversity of natural diversity of coastal environments through community supported education and stewardship projects, and community supported is sort of the key portion of that. Our work is grounded in the community, and it's a lot of our conservation is dependent on the community. And this project is one that's pretty extraordinary in that it's been really since 2005 in the making, on and off. This is an acquisition, a conservation acquisition of 357 acres. Some people are familiar with this property. They call it the Dog Ranch. We're sort of rebranding it as the Samoa Dunes and Wetlands Conservation Area. If we take a step back, this area, all of this area on the North Spit was, and the North Spit is here for orientation, north part of Humboldt Bay. All of this area here around Humboldt Bay is ancestral Wiyot land, and it's important to keep in context that the Wiyot have been stewarding this area for millennia, and the Wiyot have been a partner in this project and very supportive of this conservation project. So I just think it's important to have that context to start with. Over the last 40 years, people have been working to conserve these areas on the North Spit, starting in the north at Lanphier Dunes, down to Malel Dunes, Friends of the Dunes property here, Manila Community Services District, and then this last piece, most recent piece of the puzzle is here, just as you come across the bridge from Eureka. This 357 acres has been in private ownership. Rob Arkley Security National purchased it in 2005. Over the last couple of years, Mr. Arkley and Security National have been looking to sell this, and so a group of different folks have been working to put together a conservation acquisition or purchase. And this culminated this last year. There were some rocky parts of it. At first, the Harbor District, the Humboldt Bay Harbor District, was going to take ownership of the property, temporary ownership. And at a certain point, their board felt that they didn't have the capacity to take this on. So at that point, Friends of the Dunes stepped up and said, we're willing to take on the interim ownership of this property and open it up to public access, as well as to habitat conservation. You can see there are a number of different trails through the property that exist. We don't have to cut new trails. They're already there. It's a fantastic opportunity to explore. I do want to highlight in this, before we get onto the land there virtually, that a conservation project this large requires a ton of partners. It's not something that just happens it just happens with one organization. So I do want to give a shout out to the Bureau of Land Management, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Mike Van Hatten in particular, had a huge role in this. The State Coastal Conservancy, the Wildlife Conservation Board, the Wiyot Tribe, California Natural Resources Agency. You can see there are a ton of different partners and people. No great work in our community or in conservation is ever the product of one person or organization. And it's important to acknowledge partners in this. So one thing you might notice about this property from above, lots of different parcels. There are 12 parcels. There's some bayside, but I want us to focus on this area over here, the coastal dune habitats, and you can see how green that is. It's forest. This is a profoundly forested habitat, a profoundly forested set of dunes, and it's dominated by Sitka spruce and shore pine, these here, but you can see there's a remarkable amount of diversity. You can see wetlands, pockets of wetlands throughout it. I want to take you further down below the canopy and into it. It's a really special place. This is profound old growth forest. You don't see Douglas fir like this in other areas in the coastal dunes. It's a wonderful place to explore, trails heading through this. We're currently leading some tours monthly. It's all COVID safe. You can see people are masked up, distance, small groups, but we are providing that access so that people can learn about this property a little bit more. Going down to an even finer scale in that forest, incredible diversity with regard to mosses, lichens, you've got fungus, mushrooms, and all kinds of animals too. And remember, this is a sand dune, and it's got its critters like this rough-skinned newt, one of our mascots and friends of the dunes. The rough-skinned newt has a toxin in its skin, so that if you ever see them out there, they're very unafraid of us or really anything, because if something tried to eat it, they wouldn't really fare very well. They'd probably get really sick or die. But they're harmless creatures, and there's a remarkable amount of wildlife out there. Just the other day, my wife was out walking and she heard an owl early in the morning. We're not supposed to have owls in our dunes, but this area, again, it's profoundly forested. And this is the furthest southern extent of this forest type in the world. So it's an ecological wonderland. It's got about 81 acres of wetland, and wetlands, coastal wetlands, are some of the most biodiverse habitats in the world. You've got about 139 acres of this forest, this beech pine and Sitka spruce forest, and about 84 acres of open dunes. You can see that vegetation has been mapped a little bit, but you can see that patchwork, this sort of mosaic quilt of different habitats. It's a truly special place, and now it's permanently protected. Part of the reason for the protection is that it's rich habitat for endangered species like this Humboldt Bay wallflower. In just a couple of weeks, these little yellow flags are going to be popping up everywhere on the Samoa dunes and wetlands. Beach leia is another endangered species. There are literally hundreds of thousands of them out on this property. Really fantastic habitat. So why conserve? Sometimes those of us working in conservation, we say, well, the question answers itself, but I want to put it out there. There are purposes for this. One of those is to conserve these natural resources that we have, this biodiverse habitat. Another reason is to study it, to provide places for our students. And we approach learning as a lifelong endeavor at Friends of the Dunes. That's kind of the lens we look at it through. So everyone's a student, and this is an outdoor classroom. And public access. During this pandemic, I think all of us realized the value of having public outdoor spaces and ability to recharge in nature, to find space, to find inspiration, to find peace in the natural world. And this place provides all those opportunities, like I said, with existing trails. And then in the future, perhaps restoration opportunities. There are some invasive species on the property. During our tenure as interim landowner, Friends of the Dunes is not going to engage in restoration. To do that, we would need a coastal development permit. And we see ourselves as the interim landowner, and we're working with our partners that I mentioned earlier, including the BLM, the Wiyot Tribe, and others, to determine what's the best long-term land ownership and land stewardship of this property. but we're always going to be a partner in it. So I want to take you on a cross-section tour of this property, starting at the beach, starting the furthest west. You can see there's expansive coastline. Entering onto the property, you have these foredune areas of habitat. And then just behind the foredunes, you've got a very rich and diverse dune swale. Within the foredunes, you have this mosaic of native plants that bloom throughout the spring and summer, supporting more than 40 different species of native bees. Walking back across the property, you get into some of the uplands. You can see the sweep of the dunes. Again, this is a remarkable place. People can spread out on walks or tours and enjoy this. Walking back onto the parabolic dunes, these are vast windswept dunes. They're called parabolic dunes because that's the shape. They're formed by the wind. This is an aeolian landscape, one that's formed by the wind. And these parabolic dunes then drop off into this really expansive forest. And getting into the forest is really a highlight of the Samoa Dunes Samoa Dunes and Wetlands Conservation Area. And I encourage everybody to do that. So this property has it all. It's got coastal forest, it's got topography, it's got this aeolian landscape, and it's got wildlife and recreational opportunities, and finally these broad views to our coast. So again, I just wanted to sort of give a little bit of the history, an overview of the property, and say if we don't work to conserve this over time, there are challenges. And this property has had a recent history of camping, of people cutting and burning down trees, literally deforestation from space. One of the conditions of sale with Security National was they had to ensure that there were no camps, no illegal encampments that were on the property. They did that for a period of 8 months. We're continuing to walk the property, and I mean we have a group of volunteer trail stewards. And so I would encourage, if folks are interested in helping steward this property, the way we approach this is not as police of this property, but as community stewards, and we welcome the help. And I just want to say how much I admire Rotary and your commitment to community, and say that this is an opportunity to get engaged, to get involved. So far, we've hauled about 1,600 pounds of trash off of this property. There's more, but it is remarkably beautiful. So I don't want to end on a slide of the problems. I want to end on a slide of opportunities. So here is a web address where you can find out more information about sort of the basic rules and regulations, access, and find a map. And the map that we have up on our website is georeference, which means that you can download it and then upload it to a free app for your smartphone called Avenza, and it will tell you where you are on the property at any point, which is really helpful when you're learning about a new place. So those are some of the tools that we have. I haven't been really tracking my time here. It's just about right, but I wanted to open it up for just a couple questions if people have that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Romy.
Are we able to go and walk on the trails now?
Yes, absolutely.
Where do we access?
So I'd say one place that people might be familiar with is the Manila Community Services District. You could access from the north there, park at the Manila Community Center, and then walk in on the trails. You could walk out to the Waterline Trail, and then from the Waterline Trail, Romy, you could hike south and onto the property. That would be an easy way that maybe you're familiar with. You could also park it from the south in Samoa at the power poles area, and then walk north from there and onto the property along the Waterline Trail as well. Those are options. There are a network of trails that start in the center of the property. You could park on Cookhouse Road, sort of carefully cross New Navy Base Road, step over the gate there, and you'd be pretty immediately onto a network of trails as well. So those are 3 different possibilities. This doesn't have a lot of developed infrastructure for parking this property. And again, to develop that would require a coastal development permit, and we're just not in that place as the interim landowner. So those are some possibilities.
The number 3 was Powerline Road.
Yeah, Samoa Power Poles parking lot. I'd say if you park there, make sure, well, anywhere on the peninsula, but there for sure, make sure you don't have anything valuable in your vehicle at that Power Poles parking lot. But I know people are accessing the property from the south as well.
And Mike, I might interject to club members, if anybody would like a personal tour one-on-one or just a few of us, just email me and I'd love to give anyone a tour of the property. So, and that will kind of help orient you for future access as well.
Thanks, Carol.
And on the Friends of the Dunes, there's a place to sign up to be a steward to help.
I would say, Romy, if you're interested, go ahead and just email me or Carol, and we can sign up. I do periodic trainings for our trail stewards. We've done 2 cohorts already, and so I like to collect about 8. We don't want to lead many more than that under the current health guidelines. So I collect about 8, and then we'll find a date and go out there and orient you that way.
We had a question in chat whether dogs are welcome.
Yes, we're not trying to keep dogs off the dog ranch. Yeah, the regulations with regard to dogs is on trails, on leash or under strict voice control. And that's consistent with how we've managed the Humboldt Coastal Nature Center property that many of you are familiar with. So it's the same. We think that it's appropriate out there, but there is wildlife. And I mentioned that rough-skinned newt. If your dog got a hold of a rough-skinned newt, it probably wouldn't live. So it is really important to have your dog under control while you're out there walking around. And we just, again, ask leashed on trails, or if you have a very well-behaved dog, under strict voice control.
And
All right.
are any parts wheelchair accessible?
It's very difficult to push a wheelchair in sand, but if you are interested, there are potentially possibilities. Contact us at Friends of the Dunes. We do have a beach wheelchair, which has the wider tires to distribute the weight that you can check out. And those trails at the beginning are very flat. And so you could use a beach wheelchair out there. The trails are wide and flat, so I see that there are opportunities for it. Probably not in terrain like this, like over parabolic dunes, but I think on some of the flat trails that are wide, I think that there's a possibility of that, yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and the care and your willingness to let me share some of this.
And we want to thank you, and we'll donate, excuse me, we're donating in your honor to Tri-County Independent Living, who support people with disabilities and living independently in our community. So again, thank you for your time. We really do appreciate it. And this sounds wonderful. It just looks incredible, and it will be great. Maybe get a group of us to go out there and take a tour, wander about. It could be a good fellowship event. And so sounds wonderful. Thank you, Carol, for bringing this program to us. And thank you, Mike. And these are not native to the dunes, nor is that a flower that they've picked from the dunes, so no worries there. But I thought this is really sweet, and I hope you all have a wonderful Maggie's birthday weekend. And I will see you at Mia Bella or at Happy Donuts. So everyone have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.